Good morning, students. In our today's SST session, we are going to take up the third chapter of civics. That is, why do we need a parliament? Now, for that, first of all, we must know what is parliament. Now, parliament is the legislature body, the body which makes and which executes the laws in the country. So the legislating body of the country, that is called as the parliament. Now we know that in India we have a democratic type of government. That means the gist of democracy, or the core of democracy, is people and people. We often say now democracy is a government of the people, for the people, and by the people. So right from the making of laws to its execution, at every step, the people are concerned, and the parliament, it needs to take the consent of the people. Now, you'll be surprised that how is it? How can Parliament take consent of the people before making laws? So, how does this happen? And how did this system start? To understand this, let us go back to the colonial rule when India was under the Britishers. Now, that time, the Britishers, they had the government, they formed the government, and they made the laws for our country. And although many a times people were not happy with those laws, but still they could not criticize their decisions because they were in grave danger. They could not, they were living under the Britishers. Then gradually the nationalist movement began, and then the nationalists, they began to take the courage to openly criticize the British government. And then gradually later on the Indian National Congress was formed, and then they demanded that from the Britishers that there should be some elected members, some elected Indian members in the legislature, so with the right to discuss the budget and to ask the questions. So then the British, because the nationalist movement was going on and it was gradually becoming strong, so the British had to agree, and the Government of India Act in 1909, they allowed some elected representatives from the Indian side, but still to keep a control or check on them, they did not allow all the adult members to vote. So that means only a few could vote, and only a few members were there. But then later on, as we gained independence, it was very clear in the mind of all the Indian citizens that they would opt for the type of government where all the citizens should get equality, and all the citizens should take part in the running of the country or the decision making of the country. So that is why we opted for a democratic government. The constitution was made, all the laws, they were written down. The universal adult franchise was started. That means every citizen who was above 18 years of age, they had the right to vote. Now, because we had opted for a democratic government, and the gist, as I told you earlier, the take-off point for democracy is that the idea of consent, or that means the government has to keep in mind the desire, the approval, and the participation of the people. So it is the decision of the people actually that creates a democratic government. And how does this happen? We all know it happens through the elections. There are elections, and in the elections people, they elect their representatives to the parliament, and then one group from among these elected representatives, they form the government. So we can say that parliament which is made up of all representatives together. All the representatives which are chosen from the country, they all together make up the parliament. And the parliament, it controls and it also guides the government. Now, from those chosen representatives, a group forms the government and it also controls us. So this is the how people indirectly they control the government. The people choose the parliament, all the representatives, and all the representatives they form the parliament, and from that group, one group of people, from that all the chosen representatives, one group of people, they form the government. So this is how the parliament has hold on the government also. It guides also and it controls also. Now we come to the structure of the parliament. Now let us try to understand the role of the parliament. What role does it play in the running of the country? And for that, first we need to understand the structure of the parliament. How is it composed of? Now, the Parliament of India, which is also called Sansad in Hindi, it is the supreme law-making institution in the country, and it has two houses. They are the Rajya Sabha and the Lok Sabha. This much we know. Now, Parliament in our system has immense powers because it is the representative of the people. And elections to the Parliament, they are held in the similar manner as they are for the state legislature. Now, the upper house, we start with Rajya Sabha. The Rajya Sabha, it is also called as the Council of States, and it is also called as the upper house. Now, it has a total strength of 245 members, and the chairman of Rajya Sabha, it is the Vice President of India. The Vice President of India, he is the chairman of Rajya Sabha. Now, the members of the Rajya Sabha, how are they elected? The members of the Rajya Sabha, they are elected by the elected members of the legislative assemblies of the various states. So, each state, we have legislative assemblies. These legislative assemblies, the members of these legislative assemblies, they further elect the members of the Rajya Sabha. So, there are 233 elected members in Rajya Sabha, plus there are 12 members which are nominated, who are nominated by the President. So, that makes it 245. Now, because the members of Rajya Sabha, they are elected by the members of the state legislative assemblies of various states of India, so it primarily functions as the representatives of the states of India in the parliament. Of course, whenever a law is to be made, the legislation of that law can start in the Rajya Sabha, and of course, whenever a bill has to be passed or the law has to be passed, so it is required to pass through the Rajya Sabha also in order to become a law. So the basic function of Rajya Sabha is it plays the role of reviewing and altering if laws are to be altered. Now we come on to Lok Sabha. Now the Lok Sabha is also called as the lower house of the parliament, or it is also called the House of People. Now this house, the members of this house, they are directly elected. Like the members of Rajya Sabha, they were indirectly elected. The members of the state legislatives, they elect the members of Rajya Sabha, but the members of Lok Sabha, they are directly elected by the people of the country, and it is also called the House of People, that is why. And the total membership of Lok Sabha, it is 545, and it is presided over by the Speaker. The Speaker is the the presiding officer in the Lok Sabha. Now, the Lok Sabha is usually elected once in every 5 years, and the country is divided into numerous constituencies, and each of these constituencies they elect one person to the parliament, and the candidates who contest elections they usually belong to different parties. So once these members they are elected, they become the members of the parliament, or we call them MPs also. So all these MPs together they make up the parliament. So this is the constitution of the Lok Sabha. Now, what are the functions of the parliament? Now, after the elections are done and the parliament needs to perform various functions, and the first and the foremost function is to select the national government. Now, children, there is a difference between parliament and the government. So, to make it simple, all the members which are elected from the whole country, they make up the parliament. So, and out of these elected representatives, all that do not form the government, a group of few members, they are chosen and they form the government. So the parliament plays the role of legislation, that is the making of laws, and the guiding and controlling of the government, and the government plays the role of execution of the laws. So we know that parliament, it consists of the president, Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha. Now, for a party to form the government, they must have a majority of elected MPs. Now, since there are 543 and plus 2 nominated members in Lok Sabha, so at least for a party to form the government, the party should have at least half the number. That means almost 272 members or more. So whichever party in the elections, whichever party wins the majority, that means 272 seats or more, that party will form the government. And the opposition and the rest of the members of the parliament, they form the opposition. So the opposition in parliament, it is formed by all the political parties that oppose the majority party, and the largest amongst these parties, it is called the opposition party. Now, the most important function of parliament or Lok Sabha, it is to select the executive. Now, executive, who are the executive? Who is the executive? Executive is a group of persons who work together to implement the laws which are made by the parliament. And this executive is often what we call the government. Another name for government or the executive is the government. So, the Lok Sabha members, the first function of the Lok Sabha members is to select this executive. Now, the Prime Minister of India, he is the leader of the Lok Sabha, the ruling party in the Lok Sabha. And the Prime Minister selects ministers, from the members who belong to his or her party. The Prime Minister selects the ministers to work with her or him to implement the decisions. And these ministers, they take charge of different areas of the government functioning, like health, education, finance. Now, in the elections, if there is a single party which wins the majority seats, that means more than 272, then that single party forms the government at the center. Like presently, we have the BJP party which is formed at the government. But many times it may be that a single party does not win the majority of the seats. So in that case, one or two or three parties, they join together. The parties with similar point of view, with similar concerns, they come together and they form a type of government which is called as the coalition government. So when there are more than one party in a government, two or three parties join together, that type of government, it is called as a coalition government. So this is how the first and foremost function of the parliament is to select the national government. Now the second function of the parliament is to control, is guide and inform the government. The government means the executive, the ruling party. So how does it do that? Let us study. Now the parliament, when it is in session, it begins the working of the parliament. It always starts with a question hour, it is called as. Now this question hour, it is very, very important mechanism through which the MPs, they can ask information about the working of the government. So they can ask questions from the members or the ministers, they are also called as the ministers. And this is very important way through which the parliament, it controls the executive, by asking questions. The government, it is shown its shortcomings, and through these questions the government also comes to know about the opinion of the people through their representatives in the parliament. And the opposition party, it plays a very, very crucial and critical role in the healthy functioning of the democracy, because they are the ones who highlight the drawbacks of the various policies and the programs which are formed by the government. So in this way, the government gets a very valuable feedback, and it is always kept on toes by the questions which are asked by the MPs. So in addition, in all the matters, especially dealing with finance, the parliament's approval is very crucial for the government. So whenever there are things related to finance of the country, the money matters, so that time the approval of the whole parliament is very, very important. If the parliament does not agree, the government cannot pass any such law. So this is how the parliament controls the government also, and it guides also, and it also informs the government. And the third function of the parliament, it is the law making. That's the most important one, how they make the laws. That is why it is called as the legislature, and we are going to study about law making in the next chapter of the civics. Now after this, let us study who are the people in the parliament. What kind of people do we have? From which backgrounds we have people from the parliament? Now the present day parliament has more and more people from various different kinds of background. For example, there are more rural members, and there are members from regional parties also, and which till now which they have been unrepresentatives. Now we have members from such regional parties also. And moreover, there has been an increase in political participation from the Dalit and backward castes and the minorities also. And there has been an increase in the participation from the marginalized groups also now in the present parliament. So with this in mind, some seats, they are reserved in the parliament for SCs and STs, scheduled castes and scheduled tribes. And this has been done so that the MPs elected from these constituencies will be familiar with, and they can represent Dalit and Adivasi interests in the parliament. And more recently, it has been suggested that there should be a reservation of seats for women also. 60 years ago, we had just 4% of MPs who were women, but presently we have above 9% who are women. So this completes the chapter about Parliament. We have studied what is Parliament and how is it elected and the functions of the Parliament. So do read this chapter and then we'll discuss the question answers. Thank you.